Oh, that's good stuff. You know, when it comes to the art of negotiation, do you succeed or do you shrink away from it? Well, attorney, mediator, and executive coach Robin Pugh joins us with some great tips that'll help you make your point in a peaceful and a professional way. And he even wrote a book about it, Performance Intelligence at Work, so you know what you're talking about.
Hopefully.
Well, so negotiating at work is something that we all have to do one way or another at some point in time.
Usually every day.
And it's kind of intimidating because somebody like me, I almost am afraid to ask for anything or to negotiate because I'm sort of timid in that way. But you say that there are some ways that we can do it successfully.
Of course. I mean, if we're faced with the opportunity to negotiate every day, then we need to know how to do it. Otherwise, we're going to be in a state of intimidation all the time, which is not a good way.
Yes.
Not a good way to go.
All right, so let's go through the steps. What's kind of the first thing that we need to know to do?
One of the things that I tell my clients straight out of the chute is that you've got to know what you want. Most people know exactly what they don't want, and they spend a lot of time defining the problem. Well, I don't want this and I don't want that, but they rarely spend time figuring out exactly what they want. And that's the very first step to beginning the process of negotiation.
So just trim away the fat of all the stuff that you don't want and really focus on what you do want.
Yeah, because I think we spend a lot of mental energy figuring out what we don't want, but we have not really defined those things that we do want. And it's very simple. All you have to do is make a list. Make a list of the things that you want.
Okay, that's very simple. All right, so what's the second thing we need to know to do?
Well, the second thing is that you've got to be committed to the process of negotiation. So you've got to figure out what your process for negotiating actually is. And so if you know what you want, not as much defined by what you don't want, but what you're going after, then you have the opportunity to ask a lot of questions because you're usually negotiating with someone, right? And so you're negotiating your way, or you're negotiating a new job or a promotion or a project that you believe in. And so figuring out how to ask a lot of questions gives you more information to know who you're dealing with.
Okay, so if you're sort of timid like I am, you're saying just stick with it, stay committed, keep asking questions, don't shrink away.
Yeah, so do you have the opportunity to ask questions? Is that something that's intimidating to you?
No, I think that's very helpful to be able to ask questions.
I think what we do is we make a lot of assumptions about what if this.
Yes, and that's where I get stuck.
Right, and so let's not assume. Let's just go get the facts. And so if you start with asking questions and you actually listen, and I mean actively listening, not listening where you're waiting to say the next thing that you want to say and you can kind of tell that the person isn't interested.
Right.
But really listening, putting yourself in their shoes, you can get a lot of information and you might actually want the same things.
Well, so sometimes, you know, you've got to give a little to get a little, and you say acknowledge trade-offs. What does that mean?
Yeah, I think people, when they're thinking about negotiation, they shrink away from it because they think it's going to be conflict. And just because you have conflict does not mean you have to have combat. Right?
Right.
And so when you are thinking about what you want, you're probably not going to get 100% of everything that you want. So as you identify those things that you're willing to give up, the trade-offs, celebrate those trade-offs as being that much closer to actually getting what you want.
Reminds me of dating, Robin, where you go, I'm willing to put up with this, but I'm not willing to put up with that.
Well, it's a key difference, right? Because I'm not talking about settling for something less than what you want, but acknowledging that a negotiation is two parties really trying to influence the other to get to the same place, which is an agreement. And so if you think about it from that perspective and not really that you're losing something, but that it's an abundance mentality, there's plenty to go around. If you ask a lot of questions and you listen to the other side before you start talking, then you have the opportunity to see where the common ground is.
Oh, I like that. And so don't be greedy, right? Because that can really set you back.
Yeah, I mean, greed is probably the emotion that enters the fray when you're starting to not get everything that you want. And you really need to simmer down a little bit and pull the emotion out of it, because I think good negotiation is diluted when you get emotional about it, and that's part of your process.
Well, so let me ask you this, since you work as a mediator, if people start getting emotional during that conversation, what's the best way to handle that? Well,
I have one conference room where we have a whole living room setting, so I move them from the conference table to actually sitting on the sofa and just change the environment and get them into a different mindset by actually changing their environment. And so that's what works inside of a mediation setting. And do you think sometimes it's good to take a break, walk away, revisit it at another time if emotions are running kind of high? Patience is a virtue as it relates to negotiation, and the timing is essential. So if you have the ability to have a multiple set of conversations and not necessarily just one, then you have the opportunity to learn more information and sort of retreat and get a better plan for the next time that you have the conversation. You don't have to have it all done in one conversation.
One day.
Yeah.
All good things to think about before
Patience is a
asking for
virtue.
a raise.
Yeah, exactly.